Hi and welcome to the Mind Flux Studios. My name is Michael L. Penman, and today what we're going to be looking at is creating a evolving dub techno chord. I've always been a big fan of any dub influenced music like Left Field, Massive Attack and The Orb, and that really led me to look at the roots of dub music and kind of the techniques from artists like Mad Professor and King Tubby, to all the way how it developed into one of my favorite genres, dub techno, with artists like Deep Chord, Monolake and Moritz von Oswald. So what we're going to be using to create this evolving chord is Serum and a selection of Ableton's built-in MIDI and audio effects. So without further ado, let's get started. So now what we'll need to do to get started is create a MIDI track. So to do that, you're going to hold Shift Command T. Now I'm going to load in Serum, so I'm just going to locate one of my collections where I have Serum in there, and we're just going to use the standard initialized preset as a starting block. We'll want to create some MIDI and add some chords. So the easiest way to add a chord is load in your chord effect. Also, while I'm here, I'm going to load in the velocity because we're going to be utilizing some random velocity hits. I'm going to do the minor ninth, which is one of my favorites. So on the shift values, that's 3, 7, 10, and 14. Now what we're going to do is set up our MIDI. And with dub, it's actually relatively simple MIDI performances. So, for example, I'm just going to have one bar, and I'm literally going to have one note per bar. So I'm just going to set this as A, and that's just going to repeat over a 2-bar period. And what's going to create the more interest to the actual sound is the delays and all the modulation. So let's just have a listen to what we have so far. So as you probably can hear, nothing too special so far. And as soon as we start selecting our oscillators, filters and effects, everything will start to develop very quickly. So now on to the oscillators. So now, because I'm looking at the MIDI, I'm going to hit Tab and Shift, open up Serum, and sometimes what's happened here is my screen has gone a little small, so I'll just rescale that so we can see everything. So really it doesn't matter too much which waveform you select. Serum is great for any sound design jobs because you have a huge selection of different wavetables, some sampled from classic synths and some just random kind of great tools to work with. As well as you can create your own user wavetables. We're not going to look at that in this video, but what we are going to do is just select a couple of wavetables, and I've gone for the Matrixy C64, and I've also then went for an oscillator B, something from the Spectral. So I've used Monster 9, and I often like to do that when I'm building chords. I'll select 2 different styles, so one more analog, one more spectral, just to give us a little bit of difference in the sound. First of all, what we're going to do is just play the loop and then start adjusting the oscillators. Okay, so we instantly, before we even do anything, need to turn down the volume. And I want to have more release on the amplitude. So amplitude set automatically to envelope 1, so I'll just turn that up. Okay, that's sounding nice. I'm going to increase the volume of oscillator A because I want that to be more prominent than B. And what I'm going to do is set the wavetable position for A a little bit more, just get more bite. Okay, I think they're sounding really nice. And then again, maybe set this a bit more through the wavetable. Okay, that's good. So before we move on to the filter, let's set some noise, because a lot of classic dub would be taken from synth or sampler hits or whatever. So a lot of that would inherently have some noise in it. So I'm going to load in noise. I'm going to put it to one-shot mode as well, and I'm going to choose the Juno 60, which I really like. And I may just have to adjust the volume if it's too loud. Just have it quite subtly in the track. I just turned it up so we could actually hear what's going on. So now that we've set our oscillators and our noise, we're ready to move on to the filter. I mean, there's a lot of great filter types in here, but what I'd like to choose is from the MISC and the German LPs, so the low pass. I'm going to switch, make sure A and B are coming through the filter, and from there what I'm going to do is just adjust the cutoff all the way down, a bit more resonance, and I always like to drive it. You may need to turn down the volume on the master once you've driven it, so I'm just going to do that first before I even play anything. Okay, that's fine, we're just getting the noise through. The reason why is because the cutoff's all the way down, and what we need to do is add an envelope. So what I'm going to do with the envelope is keep it quite nice and tight, but with a little bit of attack, no sustain, a bit of release, and I'm going to take the decay in. So now to add the envelope to the filter cutoff, we need to drag this arrow and just drop it on there. I'm going to keep it at 100% because what I'm going to do, I'm going to utilize the macro as an auxiliary source. I'm going to right click on cutoff while envelope 2 is selected, go to aux source, and I'm going to go to macro 1. So that's going to control the filter envelope. So it's basically the filter envelope amount. Now we can start turning that up, and this envelope will start sending to the filter cutoff. Bit more. Maybe a bit too much attack there. That noise is a bit too loud. Okay, so I also want to set the decay to a macro so I can adjust that a bit easier than having to go into the actual envelope. So that is the decay. So what I'm going to want to do is utilize some modulation. So, and I want to do it to add a bit of randomness to this, because at the moment you can hear every hit is pretty much exactly the same. So I'm going to use LFO 3, and I've got a set of custom user wavetables, and this one I'm going to use is dub LFO. I'm just going to take off the anchoring and BPM so it's a bit more free, and I'm going to set it to a very slow rate. Now what I'm going to do is adjust those to the wavetable positions as well as the filter cutoff. So I'm just going to drag the LFO and drop it on. I don't want it to go too far, but a little bit. And so you can already hear it's making everything a little bit randomer. And again, talk about random, we've got this velocity plugin with random set up. This sends randomized velocity messages into Serum, but we actually need to utilize the velocity section. So I'm going to add that to the filter cutoff as well as the wavetable position. So I'll just get tons of random messages coming in, which will be nice. Okay, let's do that here. And here, so everything's slightly different. So now that that's set and we've got our core sound, it's not really dubby enough for me, and the reason being is we need to add a host of effects, especially spatial effects like delays and reverb. But before we move on to that, let's select some distortion. I'm just going to use the tube, and I'm going to turn it pretty high up, but then utilize the dry wet just so it's not too crunchy. So next we're going to have a filter. I often, when I'm doing dub sounds, like to utilize two filters, and I like to use a low pass and a band pass. I'm going to go into the normal and select band pass 12, so there's not as steep a slope, and then I'm going to set it up to sit midway. So let's just have a listen. And what I want to do is let through some of the original sound. Turn up fat a little bit, and maybe the drive down a little bit. And I want to add some modulation to this. So I'm going to map LFO 3 to the resonance. And from there, I'm going to map LFO 1 to the cutoff. I'm going to set the LFO 1 to sine wave. So I'm going to click the little folder box, go into basic, and go sine wave. I'm going to take off BPM and anchor. And I'm going to take down the rate quite slow again. Okay. Okay, that's sounding cool. Let's start adding our spatial effects. So we'll start off with some chorus, slow rate. So I just spread everything out, made everything sound quite nice. I'm going to set 2 different delay times. And that's sounding good. Now on to the delay. I'm going to do tap delay. I'm going to set 2 different times. Let's go for 116. Okay, that's sounding good. Let's set the velocity to the feedback to a bit more randomness. Let's do the same L for 3. And then with LFO 2, I'm going to leave it on triangle and just set a slower rate and set it to the frequencies. So already you can hear it's getting a bit more dubby. And to even make it more, let's add our reverb. And we'll switch it to plate. We'll set the size a bit bigger. And let's have a low cut. And then what I'm going to do is add LFO 1 to the high cut, just so it gets dampened throughout. Okay, a bit more. So that's sounding cool. Lastly, I'm going to add an EQ, and then we'll have a look at maybe some extra little bits of modulation. So I'm going to set it to high pass and just take the Q down, just to make sure there's no low-end build-up. Okay. One thing I like to do is vary the rate of the actual LFO. So again, because we've got these random velocities coming in, I can actually add that to the rate here. Okay. So now that is the preset. What we want to do next is add in an echo from Ableton. So I'm going to go into my collections, or if you don't have them set up in your collections, they're in the audio effects. I'm just going to drop an echo down and set some adjustments. So first of all, I want to set the times to dotted and triplets. So I'm going to leave this on a dotted 8, that's one of my favorites, but I'm going to set this up to a triplet 16th, just to add 2 different delay times. I'm going to drive it a bit more. I'm going to make sure the drive is on, and let's put a bit more feedback, and maybe a little less ducking. Yeah, start to hear it affecting more. A bit less reverb. I'm going to keep it on ping pong. But what I want to do is in the modulation, I want to set up a slow LFO to the filter and a tiny bit to the delay. And I also want to, in the character, add some wobble and some noise. So that's sounding good. What I like to do to adapt the dub sequence more and keep it evolving is I duplicate the track, so Command D. I'll then go into the MIDI and mute these two notes. And lastly, towards the end, I'll just play the note right next to whatever note you've been playing. It creates a really nice dissonant feel. I'm going to pan one left, one right. And then I'm going to adapt this section so I can change the chord. So I can just go back to a minor 7th, as well as I can adapt the time on the delay as well as some other settings. So I'm going to go to 8th, and I'm going to go to quarter note. I'm going to add more feedback, more reverb, and from there I'm going to go into Serum, and I'm going to change the filter I'm using. So I'm going to go to bandpass. I'm going to group these two together by selecting them and then hitting Command G. And then what I'm going to do is drop on our EQ8, just clean up any low end and brighten up some of the mids. And then now, lastly, what I want to do is drop the exact same echo on the group to have a little less input, a little less dry wet. And there you have it. We've created a lovely evolving dub techno chord, which will help carry through the track and keep moving throughout. If you've enjoyed this video blog post, feel free to subscribe to our channel. Also, the preset and session for this will be on our website, so check out the link below.